Hi everyone, welcome to the first Planted Goodness workshop. I'm Abigail and I'm a high school student and a Girl Scout, and I began Planted Goodness as a part of my Gold Award project. I'm very passionate about the environment and what we can do to protect it. So for my Gold Award project, I thought it would be really important to explore and educate about a new way that we can act for our environment, because I've always been looking for ways to help the environment aside from reducing single-use plastic or transitioning to renewable energy, which are all great, but I think more can be done and more needs to be done. So I found, after coming across a documentary, that food is actually very linked to the environment, and the choices we make when it comes to food can help prevent climate change. So that's what we're going to explore today. First, we're going to talk about what climate change is, and then we're going to move into how food connects to the environment, and finally, we're going to talk about regenerative agriculture, which is a type of farming that is sustainable, which means the earth can handle it and it actually helps the earth for a long period of time. So let's start by looking at climate change, which is the heating of our planet, and let's see what it's doing and what are its effects. So what's happening? Earth is heating up. Earth's temperature has already increased by about 1 degree Celsius in the last century. Although that doesn't seem like a lot, it takes a lot of energy and time to heat up Earth's water and land masses. If you think about it, Earth is about 70% ocean. That means 70% of Earth is water. The oceans make up about 321 million cubic miles of water, and 1 cubic mile is about 1.1 trillion gallons of water. That's a lot of water. And it takes a lot of energy to heat up this water. So raising the Earth's temperature 1 degree Celsius is actually a lot. And 19 out of the 20 of Earth's warmest years have happened since 2001. So why is this an issue? Earth's temperature naturally increases and decreases over millions of years. So it shouldn't seem like this is a problem, but it is, because this time Earth is heating up much more rapidly in the past years than it has ever done before. Ecosystems, animals, humans, and other species may not be able to adapt to these changes in Earth's temperature this quickly, which is why climate change is a big threat to much of nature. Here's a video of Earth's temperature over the years. If you watch it, it'll show the date in the bottom of the globe, and you can see the orange and reddish parts are the temperatures. They represent the higher temperatures. And as the years pass by, as we get into the 60s, you can see more and more of Earth is covered by these yellowish, orangish tones. And as we get into the 2000s, we start seeing the red tones. And now in 2019 and 2020, this whole northern part of the globe is filled with red, which is what climate change is doing. So what's causing climate change? Greenhouse gases in Earth's atmosphere. So climate change is caused by too many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Earth's atmosphere is a thin layer of gases that cover the Earth, and it acts as a blanket for the Earth. So they keep the Earth warm. Generally, they're a good thing, because if we didn't have greenhouse gases, we would be freezing. The greenhouse gas effect is when greenhouse gases that make up the atmosphere trap heat inside the Earth, which warms the surface and keeps us comfortable. However, human involvement adds a lot of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. And when we add too many greenhouse gases to the atmosphere through factories and cars and all of these emissions, it makes too much heat get trapped inside, which is what's warming our globe right now. So what are some of the effects of climate change? Well, there's more intense weather, which means changes in precipitation or rain patterns, more droughts, heat waves, and hurricanes. Coral bleaching is also another effect of climate change. which I personally experienced when I was snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef. Because corals are alive, they're actually small animals, but they're very sensitive to light, temperature, storms, and pollution. So when they get under these conditions, they become very stressed. They spit out the algae living inside of them and they turn white. Although they're not dead, they're very weak. And so here's a picture of the before and after of a coral reef. Before, you can see it's full of life with lots of colors. You can see a lot of fish there, and the corals look very healthy. And then after, you can see they're now white, and there's actually no fish living there. Again, they're not dead, but they're very weak. Other effects of climate change include the temperatures continuing to rise and sea levels rising because glaciers will melt and water expands when it's warm. So, how does the food we eat connect to the environment? That seems so weird. So, let's think about a Big Mac. What do you think's in it? You can pause this video at any time if you want to discuss or think about it a little longer. But I'm going to go on ahead and let's see what's in it. Well, usually there's a bun. Actually, there's always a bun and lettuce and onion. There's a meat patty, pickles, cheese, and tomato. You can't see all of them in there, but that's usually what's in a Big Mac. So think about, how did it get to you? Where did it come from? Did Big Macs just grow off of trees? Do they just come from McDonald's? How did it get to McDonald's? You can pause the video to think about this a little more. Well, let's start by talking about the lettuce, onion, pickle, and tomato. They all started on a farm, but what ingredients were used to grow them on a farm? Well, in order to grow things on a farm, you usually need water, sunlight, and soil. So if we think about water, 31% of the water in the US goes towards crop irrigation. That's a lot of water. Does anything else go into these lettuce, onions, pickles, and tomatoes? And remember, these are the vegetables. Well, fertilizer, because in order to make things grow faster and bigger, farmers tend to use fertilizers, especially to produce a lot of them. Like McDonald's needs a lot of these lettuce, onions, pickles, and tomatoes. So 30% of nitrogen oxide emissions come from nitrogen fertilizers, and these emissions pollute the air, soil, and water. They also use herbicides, pesticides, and growth hormones, and these are all different chemicals in order to enhance the growth of these vegetables on the farm and make them grow bigger, faster in order to get them to McDonald's quicker. Now let's think about the bun. It also started off as wheat on a farm, so it underwent the same process as we just talked about, leading to excessive water usage, nitrogen oxide emissions, and toxic runoff. But let's think about the transportation of the bun this time. It has to go a lot of places. It doesn't just go from the farm to McDonald's. It first goes from the farm to the processing plant, then from the processing plant to McDonald's, and finally from McDonald's to you. Sometimes there's also little mini steps within these processes, so this might just be a simplification of where it goes. But that's a lot of driving. 14% of overall crop emissions come from transportation. This includes from gasoline, oil, fuel, and diesel, which all contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, leading to climate change, as we talked about. They also use power cars and trucks and tractors and plows on the farm in order to plow and get the soil ready to plant the wheat. Let's talk about the cheese. So it started off with a cow this time, but what goes into raising a cow? Well, the cow has to eat, and in order to produce the feed crops, which is just the name for food that is fed to the cattle, it has to undergo the same farming process as we talked about for the previous two examples, which leads to excessive water usage, nitrogen oxide emissions, and toxic runoff. And in addition to that, in order to raise the cattle, it requires the release of cow manure and digestion because the cattle have to release their waste. And that leads to high methane emissions, which is also another greenhouse gas, which leads to climate change. Again, the cheese has to be transported, which leads to more greenhouse gas emissions from the fossil fuels. And it should be noted, usually not the cheese on Big Macs, but some other cheese is flown by airplane from further areas like Italy or Europe or other places in Europe, I mean, and that results in a lot more greenhouse gas emissions as well. About 1 pound of cheese creates about 15 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions. So think about that statistic for a little bit. And finally, the meat patty. Let's think about where this comes from. It also started off with a cow. So as we discussed with the cheese, we have to produce the feed for the cow in order to give it some food. So they have to clear forests to make room for both the cows and to grow the cows' feed. So industrial livestock, which means the livestock that is given to the factories, which is given to McDonald's, they feed their cows corn and soy because these grains fatten the cows up really fast, which provides more meat for McDonald's to use. Corn and soy are grown on monocrop farms, which only grow one crop. And because they're only growing one crop and there's just acres and acres of just one crop being grown, the soil loses its nutrients. Cows are also meant to eat grass, right? We always see pictures of cows eating grass, but that's not what they're being fed. They're being fed corn and soy. So this makes the cows sick. It's like if we were forced to eat hay. I mean, we're not supposed to eat hay. It would not be delicious at all, and we'd probably get sick. So farmers have to feed the cows antibiotics or medicine to cure them, which are more chemicals. Methane is also, again, released from their waste and digestion. They have to transport the cattle from the farm to the factory and then to McDonald's as well. And processing. They have to process the cows into the meat patty that you see in your hamburger. So, to take away from this, we learned that our food is very connected to the environment. So, there are four main ways that the production of meat affects our environment. Through greenhouse gas emissions, as we discussed, which means raising and processing meat emits these greenhouse gases, land degradation and deforestation, which means the rainforests are cut down to clear room for the livestock, water pollution, which means water sources are polluted by livestock waste and fertilizers, and biodiversity loss, which means growing too much of the same crop, and that reduces diversity. These are all pretty big words, and we'll discuss them in each workshop. This is kind of what the workshops will focus on. So here are some statistics about how meat production affects the environment. 18% of global man-made emissions come from livestock production, and I know you can't see it because my face is above it, but what it says below it is that's about equal to the emissions from all of transportation combined. About 70 billion animals are consumed each year. 27% of the world's water usage goes to produce animal feed versus the 4% we use at home. That's including all the showers, washing hands, washing dishes, and washing laundry we do. 70% of former Amazon rainforests are used for livestock feeder production now. So they're destroyed in order to make room to produce more livestock. And 83% of global farmland is used for animal production, but it only provides 18% of the world's calories. So what can we do to help? We can eat more plant-based foods, including fruits, vegetables, beans and legumes, whole grains, nuts, and soy. We can eat less meat, but I want you to note the word less. It's not about completely cutting meat out of your diet. That would be insane, and it would be a really, really hard thing to do to ask everybody to cut out meat from their diet. And I'm not even vegetarian or vegan myself. I still eat meat now and then, but it's about reducing the amount of meat we eat because that is what will allow us to create a more sustainable relationship with meat where we can still eat meat, but our environment doesn't suffer from it. And we'll talk more about that later. Now, here's a major misconception. What are plant-based foods? You might think of this or this. Both are salads. I mean, they are different salads and they both look good, but they're just lettuce and some more vegetables. However, that's not all plant-based foods are. These can also be plant-based foods. That's a burger, and those are tacos. So, plant-based foods are not just limited to salads, especially as new technologies and foods come out. There are so many different options. I know you can go to Carl's Jr. and order a Beyond Meat burger. So, it's just getting easier and easier to find plant-based foods, and there's so many options. Almost anything you can think of can be made into a plant-based food. You can look up recipes online, and I'll also give you more recipes at the end of each workshop. So, a more plant-based diet and the environment. If everyone in the US shifted to a plant-based diet, agriculture emissions could be reduced by up to 73%. We could also save 1 million liters of water a year per person. And globally, it would free up about 3.1 billion hectares, which is the size of Africa. It would also increase food production by about 23%. And note that these figures are just to give you a glimpse of what a plant-based diet can do and how it can benefit the environment. But they're based on extremes like everyone shifting to a plant-based diet, which is not reasonable, nor is it possible. But it's just used to show you the impact that a plant-based diet can have. So here's a Beyond Burger versus a beef burger. A Beyond Burger uses 99% less water, 93% less land, it produces 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and it uses 46% less energy. So now we'll talk about regenerative agriculture, which is a new way of farming that can help provide a more sustainable relationship between the food we eat and the earth. So let's think about how we farm today. Today, we farm by tilling soil, which means plowing it, and it scrapes off its protective layer. Then we put in seeds, we add fertilizer, and we then harvest, and the cycle starts over. This is very taxing for the soil, and it takes a lot of effort. So, introducing regenerative agriculture. This is a method of farming that emphasizes returning to nature and only enhancing what nature already does. Nature already has its own balances and processes of maintaining life, so regenerative agriculture only works to boost these processes. So, the core principles of regenerative agriculture are no tilling, which means no plowing, and it allows the soil to hold more carbon. Cover cropping, which means covering the soil in crops all the time, which keeps the moisture in the soil. Using a diversity of crops, not just one crop, to create a balance of pests and predators without using pesticides, and even using livestock, which is this, I think, is one of the most important principles of regenerative agriculture for me because it shows me that livestock can and meat can be a part of our diet as long as we do it sustainably. So it's okay to eat meat. I'm not saying that it's bad to eat meat or anything. It's just we have to reduce our intake and then we can cultivate a more sustainable relationship with it that's healthy for both us and the planet. So how does this relate to eating less meat? Well, if you see in the top row, that's all of the effects of livestock production that we discussed earlier. And the bottom row is how regenerative agriculture almost counteracts that. So, like greenhouse gas emissions released from livestock production are almost countered by the no tilling of regenerative agriculture, which pulls carbon out of the atmosphere and into the soil. Similarly, land degradation from livestock production is almost counteracted by cover cropping, which restores the nutrients to the soil. Water pollution from livestock production is counteracted by farms using livestock to use their manure as natural fertilizer, and the biodiversity loss relates to diverse cropping of regenerative agriculture, which counteracts biodiversity loss because it literally restores the biodiversity. So, what about us? We've talked about how a plant-based diet can help the planet, it can help the animals, and we've talked about regenerative agriculture, but how does this help us? Well, a plant-based diet actually does a lot for our bodies. It can improve our athletic performance because it helps with strength, endurance, and sports. It can promote strong health. It reduces risk for some diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and certain cancers. And it can also help increase blood flow to your brain, which keeps your brain health sharp even as you're getting older. So, increased fuel. Plants are a source of carbs, and the body uses carbs for energy. Animal products have a lot of fat, which don't create as much energy, and energy is super important for when you're playing sports. So, eating a more plant based diet can help improve your endurance, which is important for so many sports. It also improves blood flow because blood is the way oxygen and nutrients get to your brain, muscles, and body. So the plants let blood flow quickly throughout your body, which is opposite to how animal products have a lot of fat, so they reduce the flow of blood throughout your body. Plant-based products can also lead to less inflammation, which means swelling or soreness, which is your body's natural response to injury. Plants have natural anti-inflammatory compounds, whereas animal products have pro-inflammatory compounds. Eating more plants can help your body recover faster, and it can help you get back onto your A game a lot quicker. Finally, building muscle and protein. Protein is necessary to build muscle, but a lot of people don't think that you can get enough protein from just eating plants. That's a major misconception. There are plenty of plant-based sources of protein, including lentils, tofu, tempeh, chickpeas, beans, peas, and nuts. We're going to do an activity now. You can pause this because I'm going to go quickly through it, but use your activity sheets that are provided for you and follow this activity step by step. Basically, this activity is going to show you how much protein you really need. Protein needs vary depending on your weight, age, amount of exercise, body mass, and other factors. However, these are generally the amounts of protein you should be getting at your specific age. So look for your age and see how much protein you're getting. Then on the activity sheet, look at the last page and it has a list of all the foods or of a lot of foods that you probably ate sometime yesterday and their protein content. So write down everything you ate yesterday and then look at the back page and look at the foods and their protein contents. Then write the protein contents next to the food you ate yesterday and add it all together and see how much protein you really got. Is it more or less than the amount of protein that is recommended? Chances are you're probably getting more protein than you need in a day. There are so many plant-based protein options that can easily get you the amount of protein you need in one day. Lots of people think they need all this protein and they're actually getting too much. A burger can almost provide you with enough protein depending on your exercise level and your age, but a burger provides you with a lot of protein. So one burger can provide you almost more than enough protein that you need in a day. And some people eat meat 3 times a day. And so just imagine how much protein you're getting from that when you could be getting it from plant-based sources as well. So I just wanted to end with showing you some examples of real-world people who are plant-based. Cam Newton, Venus Williams, Colin Kaepernick, Kyle Irving, Jermaine Defoe, Megan Duhamel, Tom Brady, Hannah Teeter, and there's also many plant-based celebrities, including Ariana Grande, Tobey Maguire, Miley Cyrus, Zac Efron, Natalie Portman, Joaquin Phoenix, Beyonce, and there's plenty more as well. You can probably look them up online. And finally, we're going to end with a game of fantastic foods. So how well do you know your plant-based foods? I'm going to read a description and you can try to guess what you think it is. I'm going to go pretty fast, so if you want, you can also pause the video here or after each description and kind of discuss with each other and see what you think. I'm a great substitute in plant-based recipes if you're looking for a rich, creamy flavor. You can find me in recipes for plant-based mac and cheese, cheesecake, Alfredo sauce, cheese, etc. It is native to northeast Brazil, but the Portuguese took it to India, where it spread to Asia and Africa. I actually grow on a fruit called blank apple, which many people don't know about, but the fruit is actually very sweet. What am I? I'm a cashew. Yes, cashews can do all of that. They're used in a lot of plant-based recipes as a creamy substitute for milk and cream. I'm a member of the morning glory family, which is known for its sweet edible roots. I have a lot of fiber and beta carotene. You can bake me, boil me, roast me, or fry me. I can be used in a lot of different plant-based meals, such as certain casseroles, stuffed, or even added to grain bowls. There's a good chance that I may be on your Thanksgiving dinner table. What am I? That's right, I'm a sweet potato. Yes, sweet potatoes have a lot of vitamins because you can see through their vibrant orange color that they hold a lot of beta carotene, and they're great in a lot of different plant-based dishes. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and please visit plantedgoodness.org if you want to learn more about the issue or want to do some more activities or even rewatch this video. There's also a lot of cool recipes and recipe videos on there if you want to check it out and get some ideas for your more plant-based recipes. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at plantedgoodness@gmail.com. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye.